welcome everyone to our uh, Case Knowledge City World Summit 2022 and our breakout session B. And this World Summit is about actionable knowledge for the Anthropocene. And so we are having online conferences, and this is one of our breakout sessions. These breakout sessions it's about island turning towards knowledge ventures beyond the tourism economy. And this panel is going to be about emerging and innovative knowledge-based ventures. We're going to have here Professor Blanca García Quíroz and Professor Luis Rosario. So welcome everyone. Welcome Professor Blanca. Welcome Professor Luis Rosario. So we are going to start with Professor Blanca, that is a facilitator and expert in development management and administration issues with a research line in knowledge-based development with interdisciplinary studies in social science and education. She holds a master and PhD in development policy, management and administration from the University of Manchester and works as a teacher researcher at El Colegio de la Frontera Norte. In the Department of Public Administration, she has been a member of SNI Level 1 since 2011. Since 2019, she's an academic coordinator of Master in Integral Water Management, linked to Northeast Regional Directorate, based in Monterrey, Mexico.
That's correct.
The topic of her presentation is Emerging Networks for Innovators, Entrepreneurs, and Nomads in Knowledge Island. This paper is co-authored by Dr. José Antonio Torres Reyes. So, Professor Blanca, welcome, and feel free to start your presentation, please.
Excellent. Well, thank you to the people who are in the room. Thank you, Rafael, for your presentation. And yes, this topic is of a very specific interest for not only Knowledge Islands, but for the team that has been organizing this conference from the local point of view. And we will see, because this was a very specific topic that we have been talking about for a number of years. And I hope you are attracted to the topic and to the derived themes in it. So yes, the title of my presentation stems from actually a paper submission, and it's called Emerging Knowledge Networks, Innovators, Entrepreneurs, and Nomads Settling in Knowledge Islands. We will check which knowledge islands, right? Okay, and this is my table of contents. Let's say that it was very hard to put the whole paper concepts in just one, one line and 4 points, but we have tried. Okay, so I'll talk about the concepts behind the knowledge networks and agents, then the methodology. Bear with me, because that is kind of an in-house topic. And then I put TIFLOPER, which is Tenerife, Florianopolis, and Puerto Rico. This is a spoiler, because those are the three, let's say, knowledge island cases that we can start talking about, and of course, some perspectives, okay? So what is there for knowledge networks and agents? And something that we call innovators, entrepreneurs, nomads, and a number of other, actually, I should say, knowledge workers. So yes, we have a very sound theoretical base for that. And it all starts with, I don't know if you're familiar with this material, which is called the Cities of the Future. We have spoken a lot about it in not only in this conference, but in previous conferences as well. And there is actually a track for what we call intelligent cities, which are not really the smart cities. Smart cities are cities of opportunity, and we are heading into a model that we call intelligent cities, right? And in order to start deploying the infrastructure for an intelligent city, apparently we need to go through a series of steps for which the previous steps here are digital cities and learning cities. And then you jump into the knowledge city concept and also the creative city concept. So there are bodies of theory for each of these kinds of cities. I'm going to talk about knowledge cities because that is part of the topic I work on. Yes, I work on knowledge-based development, which is the third generation of knowledge management. And yes, we use a lot of knowledge management to, let's say, create and organize the information and the knowledge for the knowledge city. We will talk about also about the creative city, and you might already know some of the people behind it. So let's keep in mind this, right? That we are in the track of the intelligent city, and we can go through digital cities, learning cities, knowledge cities, and creative cities. For instance, we can talk about a concept that is very much dear to all of us who are doing knowledge management in any of the generations. We know that the concept behind all this is the intellectual capital of a city. And we define it as a combination of its human and organizational capital. They are the most important source of value for a city since they provide knowledge, creativity, and the ability to innovate. So if we're going to talk about innovators, and if we're going to talk about entrepreneurs and nomads, for instance, we need to think about the intellectual capital of a city because that is the most important source of value. And of course, that allows cities in general to innovate. This is a quote from Bonfour and Edvinson. You might remember this quote is a classic already. And the book is called Intellectual Capital for Communities by Routledge. It's the little cover of the book is right there. Okay. And we keep on with another concept, which is, of course, the definition of knowledge city, right? And as you know, we have one of our masterminds in this conference, and in the others behind us is Dr. Francisco Javier Carrillo, and he coined this definition of a knowledge city. Which is the one whose citizens deliberately seek their development through knowledge initiatives. And this is, the way that citizens actually are working on their personal and collective knowledge in order to generate the kind of city that we call knowledge city or knowledge-based city, right? So this is also a definition. I'm not going to dwell in it because there's, of course, another definition for the creative city. You might be familiar with Charles Landry. And this is also putting an input in what we want to have for cities who attract and foster the work of innovators, entrepreneurs, and nomads. Charles Landry says that a creative city is a city that needs a balance between chaos and order, because it's creative, of course. It needs creativity to retain its highly productive citizens who have lived in the city for years, and at the same time for that creativity to attract new creative and proactive residents. So there's a key point there where, yes, we can be very orderly, right, and inspiring, but you also need a bit of chaos to attract new creative people. And that is really important in these definitions of, as we said, knowledge cities and creative cities in particular. Now, this is all okay, but really another element that we would need to consider so that we walk into this knowledge agents and what attracts them to be in, for instance, a knowledge island, is the fact that they are not acting alone. These are people who already work in networks, and we call them, yes, social or societal networks, which are not necessarily related to the media, right? Although the media, the social media, are just a means to put them together, to work, to create. And we need then to define what is a network, right? The term network designates a social relationship between actors. Actors in a social network can be persons, groups, but also collectives in the form of clusters, institutions, communities, or even societies. This is by Surford and in 99. Networks are determined by content, like products or services, information, emotions, also by form, duration, and closeness of the relationship, and intensity, the communication, and the frequency. It is thought that that form and intensity of the network relationships establish the network structure. And we can say a lot about networks, but it's important to just retain that innovators, entrepreneurs, and nomads, among other knowledge workers, are actually linked by nature in networks. And I'm not going to insist too much on networks and network strength, but yes, this is a proposal by Hansen that says that, the tie strength can be strong or weak in a network, and it can be tacit or explicit in terms of knowledge. And the one we are aiming to is the quadrant that is on the, let's say, right low hand side of the graph, because it is with explicit knowledge, but with weak ties, that the knowledge is transmitted a lot easier. And you can build new networks, actually, and new knowledge if you have this kind of characteristics in your network strength. So we can discuss that later, of course, but it is interesting to know that the weak tie actually allows a lot of knowledge exchange. And here we go. We have the definitions of our actors. Like we say, we have a big list of, um, um, let's say, knowledge workers, but we have chosen these three because that was part of the interest and the call of this particular panel. What is an innovator? Well, it's someone who comes up with a better way of doing something. That is an easy definition, right? But the complicated one is innovators see opportunities. In a way, they are seers, right? And where some people see dead ends, innovators see possibilities of doing things differently. So innovators actually bring not only knowledge creation, but wealth creation. And innovation in many contexts is defined as the knowledge that can actually create or produce money, right? In our case, we think of wealth, not only money, right? Because wealth, it can be, a number of added value to the groups and societies where innovators work. We also have entrepreneurs, and although they can go and be together, and sometimes an entrepreneur was or is also an innovator, the entrepreneurs actually are the ones who make decision making, planning, leadership, management, dedication, and motivation. In many cases, entrepreneurs don't limit themselves to one project, right? Because they can handle many things. And of course, they are working as a team, and they usually are the leader of that team. Okay. So entrepreneurs are the ones who put into practice in many ways what innovators actually create. And this is also a term I hope you're familiar with. We are going to talk about nomads. Nomad is actually a very specific use of the English language, because know comes from knowledge, right? But the nomad term was coined firstly by John Moravec, and he defines it as a nomadic knowledge worker. That is a creative, imaginative, and innovative person who can work with almost anybody, anytime, and anywhere. That's why it's a nomad, because it can be in any kind of context and will work at the same level of efficiency, effectivity, right? And we're talking about, of course, that technology right now is actually helping nomads to be more versatile, and they actually work with blended combinations of technologies, right? And as a skills passport, I'm going to just make a mention of it. Nomads are not only seeking access to information, they try to using it openly and freely. They are network creators in their nature, always connecting people, ideas, organizations, and they are digitally literate. They understand how and why digital technologies work. So here we are. These are our three characters of today. And I don't want to take a long time talking about the methodology. Um, but it is, like I said, this is a household name. Maxi is part of the brand awareness of our World Capital Institute. So let me talk to you a little bit about what kind of methodology we use. Maxi is actually an award, a yearly award that is used for city benchmarking. It actually evaluates, analyzes, and recognizes city performance in terms of knowledge-based development. I'm showing some of your or these photos because this is going down to memory lane. You can see not only Charles Landry, but also some photos of the first editions of our Knowledge City World Summit. This is the one that was celebrated on the 2007, and this is our very first um, uh, conference. And here we are, actually 15 editions later. So that is part of, let's say, the team that has been working on these topics. And I'm going to talk about the Maxi Awards because that's what actually is our methodology and the one we use to see what's going on with the topic we're talking about today. The basics of our methodology is called the generic capital system, which is a set of 8 generic capital criteria. I'm just going to name them, right? Identity capital, intelligence capital, financial capital, relational capital, human individual capital, human collective capital, instrumental material capital, and instrumental or intangible knowledge capital. These are 8 dimensions of the capital criteria, and you can have in different groups, you can have over 2,000 indicators and variables that correspond to each of these 8 capital criteria. And actually, we can talk about how does that work in terms of systems, right? Well, we mentioned that we have some digital cities, and those digital cities are supported from bottom up by specifically information systems. We talk about learning cities, and we know that those cities are supported by learning systems. And if we talk about knowledge cities, we know that the knowledge system in place are the capitals that are and the systems that are going to put the infrastructure for that city to work, to sustain, right? And yes, there's also different other norms, institutions, and infrastructure for innovation systems and for innovative cities to work out their knowledge production. So this is a basic notion of what a capital system can do for a city. These are the same capitals I just mentioned, just that I want you to check that the meta capitals are referential, like identity and intelligence, and articulation for relational and financial. We are going to talk about them just very quickly because I know time runs, right? But the different capitals are, for instance, identity capital looks at how formal and informal capital elements in the city contribute to determine the city's identity, clarity, and differentiation. For instance, its historic profile, the city characterization, belongingness, and a number of things. And such is every single capital. For instance, intelligence capital, we look for future centers, the one that have or are creating prospective studies for the city. The financial capital refers, yes, to their flow, the cash flow, but also macro indicators as investment, GDP, employment and unemployment, etc. Relational capital is definitely into networks, which is something that we are interested in, right? And the rest, as you know, human individual capital and collective refer to the social structures of the city dimensions. And we have instrumental tangible capital and instrumental intangible capital. Those are the 8 dimensions of the capital. And just to give you a quick idea of it, I prepared this. I'm going to stop for 30 seconds and ask you, what do you see? What kind of capital can you identify out of the 8 dimensions of capital? And you need to tell me, which city are we talking about? You can put your answer in the chat if you can guess. It's only 30 seconds, okay? What city, what kind of capitals are looking at this city? It's human collective capital. Yes, yes, Natalie. And we're looking a lot of markets there. And yes, in the market, you don't only have financial capital, but you will have a number of cultural things there. I'm showing some food there too, which is really included in what the human capital is creating as, for instance, a culture for not only food, but cooking and all that kind of culinary treasures that we, that we actually seek for in our analysis. Can you guess what city is it? Rafael, maybe?
I think
Difficult.
it's a South American city.
South American. It
No.
might look like one, but no. It's in a different continent. Okay, no problem. Actually, we're talking about Istanbul in Turkey, right? And yes, it has some traits of um, Latin American vibe, right? Because I know a friend from Turkey came to our country, to Mexico City, and he felt totally at home because the same markets, the same vibe of people buying and eating and doing things in exchange is very much alike. I'll give you another chance. What kind of city is this? Just 30 seconds. Can you guess the name of the city or one of the capitals that are expressed there about the 8 capitals that we have mentioned? Any ideas? we can move on for the sake of time, but I'm sure you got a bit of the flavors too for food and the architecture and the history of the place. This is Tallinn in Estonia. And these are cities that the WCI and the Knowledge City Summit have visited before. So that's why we're using it. And we have visited a number of cities. This year, we are actually visiting Puerto Rico just in a virtual form, right? Okay. Well, talking about the methodology, we actually have what we call a Maxi nomination form in a platform. This is one of the pages that we have for the World Capital Institute. You can visit at worldcapitalinstitute.org and .com. And we do work on a Maxi nomination form. It has 17 to 20 questions that are actually being revamped right now because, as you know, everything about cities changed after the pandemic. The contingency really put us to work to think about what are now the priorities of cities. We're talking about health and security a lot more than we did before. So the Maxi nomination form takes that into account. Uh, the Maxi methodology and awards have four categories. The Knowledge Metropolis, the Knowledge City Region, the Emerging Knowledge City Region, and Cluster Knowledge City Region. And it actually concerns, in this case, the fourth category, which is Cluster Knowledge City Region, which actually seeks for cultural centers, key economic centers that are geographically scattered. That is a group of islands or peninsulas. So that's why we are actually having a category specific that could make for an analysis for knowledge islands. And you can also visit our page. There's a historical file there, and we call it the maxi.org page. And the Maxi is an initiative of the World Capital Institute. And like we mentioned, we are actually working on a new Maxi nomination form and categories. So we come here now, and I realize I have very little minutes. We come for this quote by our colleague who used to work for the World Capital Institute. He's based in Australia. And we are talking about a very specific type of islands, which were actually tourist islands. And they are now diversifying into economic activities from tourism into service sectors and knowledge and innovation economy sectors. This is the case of the Canary Islands, Cyprus, Florianopolis, which is a peninsula in the south of Brazil. Hawaii, Malta, and Puerto Rico are among these island territories. The rationale behind the diversification efforts is twofold. Firstly, tourism has a tremendous externality on the environment and natural resources, and is not sustainable economic activity in the long run. And secondly, knowledge and innovation economy activities produce higher value addition with lesser environmental impact. An upskilled workforce makes the economy more resilient to the prospective global financial crisis. So we are getting into the cases of our cities. Like we mentioned, Puerto Rico is, in the Caribbean area of Latin America, while Floripa or Florianopolis is in the very south of Brazil. And we are talking about Tenerife, the Canary Islands, which are in front of the northern part of Spain. And we have Tenerife as a very popular case amongst us. I don't know if Rodrigo Trujillo is in this room, but he created the Maxi nomination form that highlighted things in the Tenerife and Canary Islands complex. And this is from, as a group of islands, they show a high level of quality of life. They are a strategic base for humanitarian aid. because they are the door into Africa. Yes, and the connections with Europe are also very well developed, and they are also a privileged business hub because they are at the crossroads of different worlds, basically Europe, Africa, and America. We must remember that specifically for Mexico, the Spanish migration came from the Canary Islands, and we speak with a Canary Island accent, actually. That's where our Spanish comes from. And yes, they are also a logistic platform. And there are a number of, they have a number of characteristics that make the Canary Islands as a group, as a clustered knowledge region, very let's say, key to the connection that they have with different continents. And their culture definitely works as an agent for social, territorial, and symbolic connectivity. They have intelligent growth. They also have sustainable growth, and they have inclusive growth. They are having a mixture of what is presented for the 2020 Canary Island strategy. Of course, this has changed a bit with the pandemic, but definitely these are the priorities for the Canary Islands, even in these days. They also have key characteristics in their government, the R&D agents, the education and human capital development. We know some of the universities are strong actors there, and the finance attracts actually risk capital and investment. What about Floripa? We have very many notions about it, and we know that it's located as a peninsula in a very well-connected area. Floripa, we also have visited as a case study. All these variables were there. You can actually check this document, which is called Towards Small Florianopolis. What does it take to transform a tourist island into an innovation capital? Our team and I bet some people who are in the conference, like even Rafael and Tati, and some other researchers have actually collaborated with this. What can we say about Florianopolis? It has a pristine but rapidly degrading natural environment, existing but draining human capital, increasing but inequitable income levels, diverse but incoherent community, relative safety but raising serious security concerns, numerous but conflicting planning schemes and regulations, and established institutions but performing mostly ineffective governance. So these are, some opposite points that we have recognized as the capitals, or some of, the capitals recognized as a knowledge island. Yes, Rafael, I'll try to finish in less than 5 minutes. And of course, Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is, working its way also into a knowledge-based economy system. They are definitely investing in science, and I found these pages where they call it Ciencia Boricua in Spanish, which is Puerto Rican science, right? And they have already in place institutions which are not only seeking for funding, but also allocating millions to create the first local and competitive grant program for scientists and entrepreneurs. So this is very much the vibe in the planning for Puerto Rico today. They are very much careful about the developing human capital, which is, of course, part of the capital systems that we mentioned. We have a problem there with debt, as you can see in this graph, but definitely they are moving on into knowledge, innovation, and growth. What are we going to do with this? Well, we want to actually compare, analyze, actually do benchmarking with what these three islands in particular have for innovators, entrepreneurs, and nomads. We have already identified a few uh, which actually, as we mentioned, are part of this knowledge classification of agents. We have also knowledge workers, knowledge facilitators, and of course, knowledge-based nomads, right? But we also have included in our work what do they belong to? For instance, do innovators belong to the information or the knowledge society? Do they belong to the relationized society like nomads do? We need to maybe start classifying all that. And of course, the competencies of those knowledge agents, which in terms of knowledge workers, have a set of skills, which of course nomads have in a bigger number and in a better quality. So I'm not going to take detail into this because I really need to finish, but this is a postcard I want to give you all when Ana Cristina and Cynthia Paese came to Monterrey actually last year, and we enjoyed some time at the Tecnológico de Monterrey with Dr. America Martinez, myself here in the picture. So thank you very much. This is an ongoing research, and the first comments and conclusions will come from you because we also need input for not only Florianopolis and the Canary Islands, but also from Puerto Rico. Thank you very much. This is it. These are my contact numbers.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Blanca. It was excellent, the presentation. It's such an honor to be hearing from you, one of my references in my PhD. So it's kind of a very interesting situation. Just listening what I'm reading, what I'm using in my PhD, exactly what you are talking about. It's very, very good. It's very nice. Thank you very much for your presentation. And now I'd like to introduce, at the end, we are going to have maybe 15 to 20 minutes. So that's why I asked you to finish, that we can have some 10 minutes maybe in the end to discuss about the presentations. Now I'd like to invite Professor Luis Rosario, that is he holds an MA Master in Cinema Studies from New York University and a PhD in Communication from the Universidad de Navarra in Spain. In addition to articles in peer-reviewed journals, books, chapters, and reports on media industries, media history, and telecommunication policies in Puerto Rico. He is the author of the book Redes y Estado, Empresa y Telecomunicaciones en Puerto Rico. The recent publication includes emergency communication policies in Puerto Rico, interaction between regulatory institutions and telecommunication companies during Hurricane Maria, visual education and the School of the Air in Puerto Rico, the interwar years, and the state of pay television in Puerto Rico, regulation, globalization, and concentrations, 1996 to 2015. Rosario-Albert is an associate professor in the program of social network communication at Universidad Ana Mendes Carolina campus. The topic of his presentation now is a case study about the project Connected to Health, expanding broadband access to Loíza, Puerto Rico, organized by US Ignite in partnership with Libraries Without Border US. So please, Professor Luis Rosario, feel free to start your presentation, share your material.
Rafael, thanks for your introduction, and good afternoon. I want to express my gratitude to the organizers of the Knowledge Cities World Summit, the World Capital Institute, and the College of Communication and Information of the University of Puerto Rico, Rio Piedras campus. In particular to Professor Eliud Flores Caraballo and his staff. The title of our presentation is Digital Equity in Loíza, Puerto Rico, the Puente Initiative. This presentation will provide you with an overall view of a project that recently finished over the summer in the town of Loíza. With a population estimate of over 3.5 million inhabitants, Puerto Rico is considered one of the 5 most populated U.S. territories, along with American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. According to a Statista, in 2019, 70% of the Puerto Rican population accessed the internet, making Puerto Rico among the largest online population in the Caribbean, though compared to different US states, the unincorporated territory still registered one of the highest proportions of households without internet subscription. Recent natural disasters such as earthquakes in 2020 and the COVID-19 pandemic have intensified the need for access and adoption to broadband internet services on the island. The municipio of Loíza was founded in 1719 and is located in the northern east coast of Puerto Rico and is one of 78 towns in the Puerto Rican archipelago. Loíza is a culturally rich town, but despite its African cultural legacy, Loíza is one of the poorest municipalities in Puerto Rico, with a poverty rate of over 50%, 50.4%. In 2021, the population estimate in Loíza was 23,412 inhabitants, distributed in over 8,000 households. In 2020, the median income for households was over a little more than $17,000. As of today, internet coverage and availability in Loíza is 64.5. Based on the above information, access to broadband services in the municipality of Loíza seems a necessary service to be provided by the government or the marketplace. The topic of our presentation is digital equity in Loíza in 2022. This presentation adopts a case study approach to explore the project Connect ED Health, expanding broadband access to Loíza, Puerto Rico. The Puente a Puente initiative, this is how we're going to call the project during our presentation, was organized by US Ignite and in partnership with Libraries Without Borders and funded by the, by the National Science Foundation. The purpose of our analysis is to critically assess 3 indicators associated with digital equity in Loíza. First, access and adoption to broadband services. Second, availability of internet-enabled devices to support users' online activities. And third, digital literacy. The selected communities in Loíza were La 23 y Las Gardenias, second, Colobó, Tocones, and last, Piñones, La Torre. The Puente a Puente initiative was part of the US Ignite project known as Overcome, a larger research project on broadband access in selected states and territories of the United States. The goal of Overcome was, I quote, implement a proof of concept efforts to deploy move broadband technology solutions to both rural and urban underserved communities. The communities selected in the Overcome project reflect a mix of density, demographics, regions of the United States, technical approaches, and interventions. The project Overcome also aims to guide efforts for future implementations of connecting the unconnected. End of quote. From 2021 to 2022, Libraries Without Borders, in partnership with US Ignite and other national and local partners in Puerto Rico, such as the Information Technology Disaster Resource Center and Link Puerto Rico, deployed various high-speed broadband internet services and organized educational workshops on digital literacy and agile learning tools in the municipality of Loíza. This solution was deployed in 3 neighborhoods. As we said, Sector La 23 Las Gardenias that we see on the screen. The second community, Tocones Colobó, and the third community and last, Piñones La Torre. Other projects partners included educational and cultural organizations, religious-based groups, and technical experts. The Puente goals were to provide access to broadband services to underserved communities and leverage the skills and knowledge of community members, in particular community leaders and youth leaders, in order to expand digital literacy and telehealth services and improve well-being of Loíza residents. The objectives of the Puente initiatives were technology deployment of various high-speed broadband internet services. Second, strengthen community centers infrastructure. Third, provide digital literacy and agile learning tools workshops to promote telehealth services, job searching, and self-learning. And fourth, research data collection on broadband services, access, and adoption. This research justification is twofold. First, our data analysis aims to contribute to the Overcome project, as it also bridges a gap related to the lack of contextual information on digital equity in Puerto Rico. Also, the approval of the Digital Equity Act of 2021 in the United States, a landmark legislation aimed to address the digital divide in the states and territories, included in the Bipartisan Infrastructure, Investment, and Jobs Act, serves as a leverage mechanism for policymakers to advance digital equity through the allocation of $2.75 billion to help, quote, help ensure that every American has access to reliable high-speed internet through a historic investment in broadband infrastructure deployment, end of quote. In regard to the theoretical background, government agencies and advocacy organizations' definitions assert the need for digital equity as necessary for civic, economic, cultural, and political participation in society. Among them, the National Digital Inclusion Alliance defines digital equity as the activities necessary to ensure that all individuals and communities, including the most disadvantaged, have access to and use of information and communication technologies. The National Digital Inclusion Alliance defines digital equity related to the activities necessary to ensure that all individuals and communities, including the most disadvantaged, have access to information and communication devices. This definition includes 5 elements. First, affordable, robust broadband internet service. Second, internet-enabled devices that meet the needs of the user. Third, access to digital literacy training. Fourth, quality technical support. And last, applications and online content designed to enable and encourage self-sufficiency, participation, and collaboration. An important trait of digital equity definition is that this activity expands to, or this concept, I should say, expands to offline and online environments and activities, making it an indicator of social inclusion. The methodology of our analysis is grounded on the fields of internet studies and telecommunication policy studies, and the following research questions guided the analysis. First, what was the demographic profile of minority participants in the selected communities? The second question was, what were the broadband access and adoption indicators in the selected communities before and after the Puente technology deployment and digital literacy workshops? Third, What was the availability of internet-enabled services to support users' online activities before and after the Puente technology deployment and digital literacy workshops? And last, what were the digital literacy indicators in the selected communities before and after the Puente technology deployment and the digital literacy workshops? The research adopted a quantitative method to assess data about the following indicators: demographics, broadband access and adoption, availability of internet-enabled devices to support users' online activities, and finally, digital literacy. Data collection instruments included an electronic survey in Spanish with open-ended and multiple answer questions. The a pre-survey was performed and included 39 questions. After the completion of the Puente digital literacy and agile learning workshops, a post-survey was conducted. On screen, you see the dates for the pre-survey and the post-survey. The pre-survey took place in March, and the post-survey took place a few months later over the summer. This section addressed the results and discussed some of the ideas and findings associated to our research. For the first research question, the results show that the majority of participants from selected communities were females, 58%, who identified themselves as Black or African American, around 68%. The majority of participants identified their marital status as single with an economic level of less than $15,000, 34%, and between $15,000 to under 25, around other 20%. Both categories are under the poverty line. The highest level of education was middle school and high school education, or equivalent, around 46%. And while university studies, including concluding the bachelor's degree, the percentage was about 25%. Regarding broadband access and adoption, the pre-survey results show that only 65% of survey participants had access to the internet services, while fixed broadband and mobile broadband services were the main modes to access to the internet. Over 95% of participants did not use broadband services for telehealth services, and a slight majority expressed concerns about the security of their personal information. Also, participants in the pre-survey affirmed that smartphone-type portable telephones, laptop, and electronic tablets were the internet-enabled devices mostly used. The majority of respondents use the internet in the household, around 86%, followed by the workplace, around 41%. The post-survey results show a small increase in adoption of smartphone-type portable telephones, but only 5% of respondents in the post-survey used the broadband internet services provided by the Puente project, either at the community center or through a hotspot that was provided to a household. In regard to adoption, while using the internet, respondents to in the pre-survey selected the following activities. And this is a ranking. Personal development and skills was 74%, entertainment 73%, online education 70%, shopping and hobbies. Those are the first 5 activities. In the question, there were over 12 activities listed, and each respondent could basically selected the highest, the ones that considered that they were using the most of the time. In the post-survey, the ranking of activities while using the internet were entertainment, maintain social ties, personal development and skills learning, financial activities, and shopping. What is interesting is that there are differences in the post-survey. Basically, that entertainment, entertainment category increased its percentage and became the main activity for community members. In regard to the availability of internet-enabled devices to support users' online activities, the Puente technology deployment included dedicated internet services in 2 community centers, as well as the acquisition of equipment and infrastructure technology. As you see, the technology component of this project was wide, and there was it included not only services but equipment, accessories, and in 2 of the sites, in 2 of the community centers, solar power systems were also installed. In regard to digital literacy indicators, participants in the pre-survey were asked if they knew the term digital literacy and if they had participated in a digital literacy workshop. A definition of digital literacy was provided to the respondents when answering this question. Digital literacy was defined as the ability to locate, investigate, and analyze information using technology, as well as being able to develop content and design proposals through digital media. As you see in the pre-survey, 73% of the respondents did not know the term digital literacy. After the workshops, the term digital literacy was recognized by 71% of the community members that took the post-survey. In regard to the digital literacy workshops, is a similar comparison. In the pre-survey, none of the people, 82%, I should say, had not taken or participated in a digital literacy workshop. After the workshops, the post-survey shows that 58% had participated in some sort of digital literacy workshop. Here is a couple of pictures of what was, how the digital literacy workshops took place. This is actually a community center next to a church in the Coloboan Tocones community. In the book Farm Fresh Broadband, The Politics of Rural Connectivity, Christopher Ali posed the concept of lived methodology. For Ali, the analysis of broadband public policies, and I open a quote, cannot forget the realities of the people they strive to serve. It is experienced in towns and communities across the United States, and it is the dialogue between articulation of policy and the experience of policy that I endeavor to understand. End of quote. To some extent, my support to the Puente project, in a way, is in a way a form to extend a bit further that understanding about digital equity in Puerto Rico. Although data collection results are not representative of a majority of community members, research findings serve to contextualize digital equity gaps in the municipality of Loíza, as well as contribute to a research topic with social and policy implications and limited scholarship. US Ignite, in collaboration with Libraries Without Borders and other partners, have contributed to the discussion of digital equity in Puerto Rico. The Puente project addressed pressing technology and educational issues in the municipality of Loíza, all related to the digital divide and digital inclusion efforts spearheaded by non-governmental organizations. Access to broadband services and digital literacy education at the selected community centers were important achievements. Despite the low percentage of users accessing the internet at the community centers, the discussion among community members about the need of a high-speed internet services, as well as getting acquainted with the term digital literacy for some for the first time, may serve as the initial and strong social equalizer to achieve that long-distance goal, digital equity for all. Here, I wanna show a declaration of competing interest. I served as a consultant and evaluator for US Ignite and Libraries Without Borders in this project. And I wanted to, seemed to me that it was important to show this information. Thanks for your attention for this project.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Luis Rosario. It was a great opportunity to hear from you, your presentation. We have just seven more minutes. So I'd like just to ask you, if somebody has a question, please put it in the chat. But I'd like to ask one question for each one, like for Blanca. What about the innovation concept related with the capital cities and Maxi, the innovation helix? Do you work with this also? Do you have this connection between the university, government, social society, and industry? How do you see this? You know, as you are talking about innovation in the island and Maxi, the capital system, how can you relate this? Is there any possibility to relate the innovation concepts from Metskovitz with the capital system?
Yes, absolutely, Rafael. Thank you for your question. Actually, what I showed was the actual methodology, because as Luis just showed, our Maxi nomination form is a kind of survey, and it is indeed a part of Eshkovitz and other other models. Maybe you're familiar with Tan Jiginkalar's model, which actually combines a bit of Eshkovitz and others. Actually, that will be the, let's say, the model of analysis. I presented the mode of recollection of data. And indeed, in our data recollection, we also have considered those variables. You must remember that the 8 dimensions actually collect different types of intangibles, and the knowledge-based capital is where, you know, in the place where we collect all those variables, and the interpretation is through a lens of knowledge-based development. And indeed, not only 3, but 4 or even 6 helixes, you know, if we talk about it with Kathy Gardner, right? She has also a model that is helping interpret this, let's say, this Maxi nomination forms, which are full of data and knowledge. And of course, it can be a complex issue when presenting the analysis results. But yes, thank you for bringing it up,
Okay.
because those are the models we are using. And I should say Eshkovitz is a bit behind, because again, we have more ellipses to the ellipse now. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, Rafael.
Thank you very much, Professor. And Professor Luis, about the city and the technology, we are having a huge discussion when we're talking about smart cities and knowledge cities, and this kind of research. Maybe one of the discussions is about the technology. That smart city is not only technology, but as you can see in your research, technology helps a lot to become a knowledge city and maybe in the future a smart city. Is that an impression that I'm having? What do you think about the technology, knowledge city, and smart city?
Well, as I was listening to Blanca, I was when she talked about the definitions, and she mentions that the nomads are digitally literate
Yes,
individuals. Seemed to me that that was an important trait, a point of intersection, if you
indeed.
will, between my field of study, which is communication and media policy and telecommunications policies, and your field or your the field of knowledge cities and knowledge society. So
Yes.
I took a note. Seemed to me that it was interesting the fact that the term digital literacy was
Yes.
present in the definition for nomads.
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed.
Well,
Yes.
well, guys, I think we have just 2 minutes more. If you want, maybe give some impressions from the end in 1 minute, and we can finish.
Yes, I'll just take a minute and not let you, Luis. I was fascinated by the presentation of your research, which is very recent. I think you're going to digest a bit more in the months to come, right? But yes, I think as we mentioned, the notion of smart city uses a lot of technology. But once you go into that stage and past that stage, I think the city will be ready for a number of new good things. I think, the fact that this part of Puerto Rico is moving on with digitalization and all this technology to support learning and knowledge creation. I would say that there's a lot more coming, and the learning will be good. Thank you.
Thanks, Blanca. If I may say just one last piece of information, the survey included 39 questions, and during conversations with the organizers, some of them posed a very interesting question. They say, well, technology is important, but what about the emotional development of community members? What about the human side? So we included a question at the end of the survey about satisfaction with life. So the idea was try to correlate uh, uh, the improvements in education and technology and satisfaction with life. So the outcome of community members, the way, I don't want to use the term happiness, but the way they were seeing themselves and seeing their near future was an interesting question. Of course, this presentation did not address that, but as like you said, Blanca, there's a lot of information that we may be working with in the next months.
Okay. Well, hey,
Sorry, Rafael, I want to
okay.
insist on, happiness is also an indicator. It's a fascinating indicator
Yeah.
of,
Okay.
knowledge-based development.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your both presentations. It was such an honor to be here with such a great researchers and with Blanca. That's my PhD reference in my job. So it's such an honor to be here, like a mediator of my reference. So it's
Thank you, Rafael.
okay.
Give you a big hug to you both and the audience. Thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you very much, and see you in another. I think we have another meetings now. We have another one in the sequence. Thank you very much. Thank you for your audience. Thank you, Natalie, for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot, for